What's happening, financial coaches? It's Pete here. One of the things I want to talk to you today about is the financial independence community. And I'm going to give a criticism of them. And I'm going to give a criticism in a way that I hope that we can learn from them because I think financial coaches tend to look a lot like the financial independence community. Now, overall, I really love the financial independence community. I am part of it. I think it has a lot to offer. I think it's helping people rethink finances in a really good way. But one of the problems with the financial independence community is that it suffers from what I think that we call the Dunning-Kruger effect. And that is when you feed yourself with a fire hose, you bring in a lot of knowledge, and you might have a lot more knowledge than the average person in finances. The tendency is to think that you have all the knowledge. And so here's how much knowledge I think the average person has about finances. You live within your means, save some money for retirement, have an emergency fund, right? Pay off your debt, those types of things. And then if you get into the financial independence community, what you're doing is you're almost doubling that. Right now you're starting to understand things like some of the investments and tax strategies and saving strategies and payroll and 1099s and IRA contributions and early withdrawal distributions and retirement income distributions and things like that. But the amount of financial knowledge out there is like this. You can't even see my hands on the frame here. So even though most people have this much knowledge, and the financial independence community has this much knowledge, a lot of people, I think that they have all the knowledge. Now, I've been in personal finance for about 20 years, and I can just tell you that I get frustrated. And sometimes what I see are recommendations from the financial independence community, especially when it comes to investing. A lot of people say, hey, index investing is the only way you should go. You capture 80% of the market returns. Most people get that wrong. That is not a true stat at all. Um, it, 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 in, Index funds tend to perform at the 80th percentile of mutual funds, and that is a far different thing. And in fact, if you look at actually the rate of returns based on market capitalization of the different funds, index funds usually put you in the bottom half of returns, which is why there are actively managed mutual funds out there, as well as fees are not the only thing to think about. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit, but I can also say that there are ways to beat index funds reliably, and things like smart beta and a lot of things that I think the financial independence community has never even heard of before. So the problem is that when people think they have all the knowledge and can boil it down to a small set of tactics or something, it always becomes kind of problematic. And I see this in the financial independence community a lot. Now, like I said, I love the passion there. I love the idea that people are learning. But sometimes if you get so committed to something, hey, this is a rule, this is something that's always the same, this is something that's been proven, and you don't have the personal insight into it, you tend to just start carrying those forwards. And that's the problem with the typical finance world. That's why financial independence was created, because people said, hey, you have to retire at 65. It's just the way things happen. And financial independence started to kind of deconstruct that and rethink it. And a lot of things that the financial independence community is coming up with are things that I think have already been deconstructed and rethought by people who are really expanding their knowledge and expanding the thought within financial or personal finance and finances in general. I bring this up because as a financial coach, you're probably going to be inundated with a lot of information. And it's going to be really easy to say sometimes that, hey, I've read this, I've read it 3 times in 3 different spots from 3 different authors. So it has to be true. It has to be, the way it is. And that's just not how it is, and things change, laws change, rules change, math changes, returns change, people's consumption habits change, technology changes, all sorts of things change all the time. We wouldn't have the term disruption if things didn't change a lot. And so one of the things that I want to tell you is that the one of my few criticisms with the financial independence community is getting enough information where we think we can't be wrong, and then committing ourselves to some sort of trope or idea or rule or guideline or law or whatever it is that we just can't shake. So don't let yourself get into that. Be open to new ideas. Let people kind of explain their thought process. And they may not all be right, but the times when I have had life-changing moments in my financial life are when I have been listening to things that didn't seem to make sense, but I let myself continue to be open to those ideas because I always thought I'm the smartest guy in the room. If I don't get it, it can't work. And if you're not as smart as me, if you don't have the education, if you don't have the background, certainly your idea can't be that good. And so I have learned the hard way. And in fact, a friend of mine, about 6 or 7 years ago, we both heard about some strategies to pay off mortgages early. And then a couple years ago, about 2 years ago, honestly, I was talking to her and I just said, "How are things going?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, and I paid off my house." And I said, "Had you paid off your house? How did you do that?" And she's like, "No, remember that thing? Remember that tip that we got, a while back? I just used it, and yeah, paid off my house." And I thought, what? You're not a financial mind. You're not even in the industry, and yet somehow you took this, trusted it, and ran with it. And I kind of thought about it, and it didn't seem to work. So, I really explored it for a long time. I tried to deconstruct the math on it, and I kind of figured out how it works. And I kind of figured out the behavioral side, and I figured out the math optimization side of it. And it took me a really long time because I was someone who I considered a brainiac. And so if I didn't intellectually get it, it wasn't something I was going to use. And I realized that I was overthinking it in some ways. But on the other hand, it's so complex. It takes a lot of research to get your head around it. And in her case, her tendency to trust, her tendency to trust the results, the testimonials work for her, right? And so she's got the benefit of it. So just don't be don't be someone who is never embracing new ideas, right? Even if you want to challenge things, right? You might be right about it, right? It's worth challenging. And in some ways, the best ideas are the ones that get challenged so they get vetted, but be open to receiving new ideas, to exploring them, to think on them, because there might be someone who can benefit from it. Maybe it's not you, and maybe it's not most of your clients, but every house has the right buyer, right? So it doesn't have to appeal to everyone. It just has to appeal to one person. So, be open-minded about it, and don't commit yourself to one kind of piece of dialogue that you're sharing as it's a rule. That's it. That's my thought for today. See you later.